Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, we are going to discuss finally a new confirmed roster in the Seattle Surge, and a couple more rumors have finally come out about some of those teams we've been waiting on. We're still waiting on ULAG. Then we're going to talk about some challengers rosters, some news around the Microsoft and Activision acquisition. Talk about the beta because Brock and I were finally able to actually play it for ourselves, and then finish up with a little bit of Halo talk. Sad day for the COD community, but technically not because a former COD pro did win it all. So going to get into all of that. If you guys enjoy this one on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on the audio platforms, drop that follow, drop that 5-star review. We appreciate your support over there. And without further ado, let's jump into this one. Brock, how you doing today?
Oh, doing pretty good on this good old Monday. Not the coldest day out here. It's serviceable. But overall, played a little bit of beta this weekend. Some good. Positive about it. Positive about the new game coming out.
Yeah, I would say the general consensus from the community, especially the competitive community and us, and at least me, is overall positive. There's never going to be 100% positive, and I don't think there could ever be 100% negative, but never going to be 100% positive. It's pretty much impossible. There's never been a perfect Call of Duty game, and there's really probably never been a perfect video game ever made. There's some ones that come close and maybe are perfect in some people's eyes, but you're always going to have things to complain about. But I would say in comparison to recent Call of Duty titles, and especially betas, I came out after watching and after playing probably the most positive I've ever felt on it.
Yep.
In quite some time, I should say.
Yeah, quite some time. I would have to agree with that.
And we'll talk more about the beta a little bit later on. I want to talk about some more CDL specific relevant stuff first, because we finally have another confirmed roster, as well as a little bit of a rumor for the Carolina roster, the Royal Ravens. It sounds weird to say Carolina. And then another rumored roster for Vegas. Still waiting on LAG, like I said in the intro. And then we do have some challengers roster. So we're going to discuss all that, then jump into the beta. First thing, Surge announced their roster of Arcitys, Abezy, Hook, and Illy, a roster we had heard a rumor about, months back, a ways back, and it seems like it did stick as they just announced it. Thoughts on this roster? We'll talk about what Arcitys tweeted here in a second, but overall, when you see this roster, have your thoughts changed from a few months ago, or what are you thinking?
No, my thoughts really haven't changed, but I just want to say, when they're not hitting on all cylinders, they're gonna be, down pretty bad, I would say, because RCs, Uke, Illy are all streaky players.
Yeah, and once again, the whole 3AR thing, they're trying to be Florida from was it Vanguard? Yeah, when they had Dave Patty and Skies and Awakening trying to have 3ARs on their roster. So when we initially heard this roster, we didn't know who was technically going to run the second sub. Obviously, we know Hook's going to run one, and we thought it would likely be Abezy because they were going to see his talent, even though he was a god tier AR. Not saying I agree with it, but we thought maybe because of his immense talent and being a young player, they would maybe try to convert him into being a sub. And then maybe Illy, because we saw Empire maybe thought to do that in Cold War when they thought they were getting Clay back, and Illy has been talked about to be moved to a full-time sub at times, so we thought it was going to be one of them. Especially because Arcitys in the past had played like a flex and even had to play a sub a little bit and always said he doesn't want that. He just wants to be a main AR. That's why he left Huntsman to go to Faze back in the day. He just always wanted to be a main, so we figured he was going to stay as the main. However, Arcitys tweeted today, and he could have been trolling, but he tweeted hashtag Flexities in his tweet. So obviously it could be 100% trolling, but if he is telling the truth and he's actually considered the flex in this team, to me that means that Abezy is going to be the main AR.
Yeah,
Because I would think that if Illy was going to run an AR mostly full time, they would consider him the flex. And then they would consider Arcitys the main. But if Arcitys is actually going to be the flex, I would think that means that Illy is going to be the full-time sub.
Yeah, that'd be a little weird, I would say.
Yeah, the first thing I think is Abezy obviously is a top tier AR, but based on the talent we've heard he had, it sounds like his slaying upside even on a sub would be higher than Illy, just based on what we've heard. So it's a little curious to me because Hook, as we know, his highs are very high. He could be a top tier SMG when he's clicking, as we saw even in this past title. At times, he was a top tier SMG. But also his lows can be very low, and we know Illy's slaying ceiling isn't super high. Illy doesn't tend to have super pop off games. He's good, and he could definitely shoot. He's not like he can't shoot back, but he's not like a super high level slayer. So could be a bit worrying there, especially because Arcitys in the past few titles hasn't been a super high level slayer either. So there might be a lot of pressure on Abezy to do so.
Yeah, Abezy's gonna be like that scrappy. It seems like from last year's Toronto team.
Yeah, just super aggressive to try to pick up a lot of kills, maybe.
Just like 1.2, 1.2 after 1.2s. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. I'm a little bit curious as to who's going to run the sub, because like I don't hate the idea of Illy running it, but I don't think there's going to be any player on this team that I'm like, yeah, let's have him run it, because like I do think the person with the highest ceiling on it is Abezy, when we're obviously leaving Hook out of it, of the other three players.
Yep.
I think the highest ceiling of any player in the sub is Abezy, because I just don't think Arcitys would have a very high ceiling on it, and I don't think Illy does either. And Abezy is the only one we haven't really ever seen run it at all, and we know his ceiling is super high. They picked him up to be the superstar of this team, so I guess in a way, I can see the argument to make it him, because he probably has the highest ceiling and the most like untapped potential there. But also at the same time, I fully agree with people that are like, you picked him up because he was the best AR in Challengers, so maybe you should use him as an AR. I completely get that logic too.
Yeah, but I would like the Surge to see. Just try him out on a sub as well. If Illy's struggling.
Yeah, and you're gonna have at least probably a month of the game being out and being able to scrim and play eights and everything. Well, you figure it out. You don't have to lock yourself into one and be like, Illy's running the sub, and then if it's not working at all, you're not just stuck with Illy running the sub. You can definitely switch things around.
Yep.
Just very curious that they don't have a clear 2 subs and 2 ARs. Interesting, but I do think there's a lot of talent on this team. I just don't know if they mesh well, because I do think, once again, I think all 4 of these players individually could be on a winning team. Like, I think a team could win with Hook. I think a team could win with Illy and Arcitys. And based on the talent we've heard of Abezy, I think a team could win with him.
Yep.
We've seen all these players win, obviously, apart from Abezy. We've seen Hook, Illy, and Arcitys all win not only tournaments, but they've all won at least one world championship as well. So we know these players can win. It's just, can this mix win? A little unsure on that.
Yeah. Good players, but the mesh might not be there.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. If one of those players can come out and be a really good sub, I think this team could be very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Next rumored roster, and there's a little bit of an asterisk on this one maybe, but the rumor from Jacob Hale and what some other people were saying they heard was Clayster is apparently headed to the Carolina Royal Ravens. Jacob Hale did say the rumor right now is Clay, Fame, Nero, and then one more, and they didn't really specify who that one more could be. However, Clay did tweet out a gif of Dwight from The Office saying false after this rumor came out, so technically he could be baiting on the timeline and like saying false to something else. But it does seem like, since it came out right after that rumor, it seems like he is denying that rumor. But let's say that is true. Thoughts on that trio +1, assuming they'd be picking up a flex, because I would think Fame and Nero were going to be the subs.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of Fame, I guess, from what I saw. He did get put onto like 3 different positions.
Yeah, he got thrown in a tough spot.
Yeah.
I will say, being that Fame was a college COD player, I watched him a good amount, and he was disgusting in college COD. And also, when we saw him play Challengers, like at the Minnesota event and everything, he was disgusting at that event, and he was a high-level slayer. So I do think there's a world where maybe his situation just wasn't great. He got thrown off because he had to go to an AR and switch roles and stuff on his team, so that could be the case. So, like, I will agree, I'm not incredibly high on Fame, but I do think he maybe got an unfair shake a little bit last year in the league. I think he got put in kind of positions to fail.
Yeah, and it also could be the game as well. It could be better, faster paced movement games.
Yeah, it seemed like he was disgusting at Vanguard, which I would say that this game, while the time to kill is obviously very different, there's gonna be a lot of different things. The movement and speed of this game feels like it will be maybe a little bit more similar to a Vanguard.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, I don't hate it, but I guess we'll see who they pick up as a 4th.
Yeah, and I mean, according to Clay, this could be not true at all. Maybe he's not even going to Carolina. Maybe he's actually at LAG since they have no rumor, or maybe he is on Carolina, but he's not bringing Fame and Nero with. I will say I do really like the Nero pickup though. Like if that was the case, I'm on the fence about Fame, but I'm all in on Nero for these last few rosters. I think he is for the subs that are left. I mean, you're picking from the absolute scraps now because, you're down to the last few rosters, so a lot of players are picked up. I will say Nero, I think, has an incredibly high ceiling for being one of the last subs in the market. I think he does have a ceiling to be a top tier SMG, maybe not like the best, but I think he could be a contributing SMG on like a top 4 team in the right scenario. I think he's a really good player, really good at S&D too.
I agree. Didn't get the best fair shot on Boston last year after he got benched.
And once again, I think you'll agree with this, but when it comes down to these teams, like when you're Carolina or you're LAG or you're Vegas and you're picking up from like 9 teams that are already formed and you're picking up one of the last teams, let's be honest, you're not going to pick up a team unless something crazy happens. You're likely not picking up a team that's going to dominate and respawn. So getting a player like Nero and Clay, who has led very good search teams, that isn't a bad move to make because a lot of times, like we saw with Vegas last year, the way that they were able to be in contention for making champs was because they were just always a great search team. And you knew they were always going to have a chance in any series because if it got to a map 5, they were very good at search and they could win those. And you always trusted them in map 2. So it was like, man, if they can just take a map 1 or a map 3, they're looking good because they're probably up 2-1 because they're probably winning map 2. So
yeah,
picking up good search players for these bottom teams is important.
Yep, I would definitely agree.
So I guess with Clay's tweet, we'll have to see what actually comes out of this. I still feel like he could be making a team on LAG just with potential money they have and everything. I feel like he could be building a roster over there.
We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Clay's former team, however, there's a rumored roster on that. We don't technically know if this one's true, but this is a full roster, so we can discuss it. It is rumored to be Attach, Standy, Mac, and Purge. So I don't know much about Purge at all. I've heard the name.
I've heard he's a really good S&D player.
Yeah, I'm gonna look him up a little bit in his like COD Sports wiki because I've heard of him. So team history, he was on a Wobble Bobs in that Millennium 17 for 7 days. Wow, nice. And then he was on Omit, which who was that? They joined together Gwyn, Phantoms, Purge, and Yeez. And then obviously Purge left in June. Trying to see like in MW2, he. That's right. That's how we know it. He was on the team that
won it, right?
That won it. Yeah, you're right. He was with the Yeez Godorex Gwyn. I knew the name sounded familiar, but I should have known that. He was on the team that won Challengers Finals. So I do remember him a little bit. He was a pretty good player from what I remember, but I believe he was a flex, right?
I think he was a flex.
Because it makes sense, because this roster, I would assume Godorex, obviously the main, then Yeez and Gwyn are subs. So that would make sense too, because I would assume on this team that Mac and Standy are going to be your sub duo and Attach is going to be the main. So then Purge and Attach would be your AR duo. I don't hate this roster. Once again, you're never going to just absolutely love the roster. Challengers Finals, he had a 1.21.
Okay.
No, I lied. No. He had a 1.06, but his S&D KD was a 1.21.
Okay, yeah.
But still 1.06.
It's still pretty good.
With a high volume of matches. He played 19 maps, so pretty solid there. And overall good placings. He had a couple struggles, but overall in MW2 had a lot of like at least top 12s and a few firsts mixed in there and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, I don't hate the roster. This roster just feels like a S&D, Neslo type.
Yeah. Which, once again, when you're one of these bottom teams, it's probably your formula to win is going to be beat an elite S&D team and find ways to win respawns.
I want a bounce back year from Mac. How about that?
Yeah. I do think that, like, I will say, because I do think Mac has a lot of talent in him. I do think this team, I like this team for what's left. Like, obviously, if I'm comparing it to a lot of the rest of the teams, I like the other teams more. But once again, for one of these final teams, I see the potential. It reminds me a lot of the Vegas team from last year, where like you have a consistent veteran main AR who's a good leadership presence, attaching Clay. Kind of compare them. Standy stays the same, a high upside Slayer at sub. Then their other sub always last year was always somebody that was, a little bit inconsistent. TJ, Mac, they kind of can fit that same build. But I will say, I think Mac could be a little bit more consistently bringing it in the slaying department compared to Tej. Not saying he will, but I think he has potential maybe to be a little more consistent. And then Purge could be your X factor. Like you're picking him up to potentially be a heavier Slayer like Temp. So I see the vision. I think they could be good at S&D, like you said. And I do think with guys like Standy and Mac and even Purge and Attach, like they have the ability that if they heat up, that team could steal some respawns. You'd be surprised because these players could shoot back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. On the right day, you never know.
Yeah. So like once again, compared to like the top rosters, are they like as good as them? Absolutely not. But I don't hate it.
Yep. I would have to agree with that.
All right. And then the last note I have here on the rumor teams, nothing on LAG. Still somehow we have nothing on LAG.
They'll probably announce it like day before the game comes out or something.
Yeah, so kind of dumb there, but it is shocking that we have a rumored roster for the Legion before LAG, because usually Legion are always the last team.
They're coming different this year and
they're going to be the 11th team announced instead of 12th.
Yep.
Speaking of London and kind of some of those guys, Challengers got a couple rumor rosters. There was like a plenty of EU and plenty of NA, but a lot of them were like chocked full of Challengers players, which, like, as you guys know, Brock and I know a lot of the names and know some of the Challenger players, but don't know enough to like actually provide a valuable conversation on like the pure players that have only been in Challengers ever. We don't have enough info on them to really provide a meaningful conversation as much as we'd like to. So not going to talk as much about those, but going to talk about some of the rosters kind of full of former pros. So apparently Hixie, Bance, Beans, and Nasty are forming a Challengers roster, which this one is significant and interesting because all four of them were in the CDL last year.
Yep.
In all, like, in their own right, didn't have the worst years. Like, Hixie obviously had a pretty good year, won an event, and also finished second at Champs. Bance, individually, he towards the end of the year, he did have flashes, and he looked pretty good himself, but his team didn't have the best year, but he wasn't, like, absolutely horrible. Definitely not a great year by any means, though. Beans, people will argue whether or not he had a good year. KD, and numbers-wise, he looked okay. At times, he flashed, but his team struggled. And then Nasty, a lot of people would argue, was the best player of that London team. Granted, once again, that team had almost no success. So, like, there are somewhat reasons why all of these guys, aren't in the league, but it is a little bit odd. It's not a common thing to see four players who were all mainstay pros in the last game, who were in the pro league for a majority of the year, all be on a Challengers roster.
Yeah. It is a pretty good Challenger team, though.
Yeah. Interesting, because like if this team was in the pro league, I'd instantly say slaying is a concern for me. Because a Bance Hixie sub duo is certainly lower end in the slaying department, but with the way that these people will probably work as a team in Challengers, they probably will be very good.
Yeah.
Because that teamwork, I feel like in Challengers, when people are so unorganized, that teamwork can really win you games. Whereas, if this team were to go up against like a Faze with that talent, I think it would just be just a pure outclass of talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're in Challengers, so
Yeah.
So elevate around.
Not going to be playing Simp and Abezy in Challengers, that's for sure.
Yeah. Will not be, unless, some new up-and-coming Challenger players are the next Simp and Abezy.
Yeah. One other note from the EU rosters I want to touch on is I saw Real on one of the rosters, which seemed very odd and was very interesting to me because, unless I'm completely wrong, and I could be completely wrong, I thought he was a Spanish player. I thought he was from Spain. It just seems a little bit odd to me that he doesn't even make the Heretics roster as like a substitute, because from everything we heard when he like came over to play NA Challengers and stuff, everybody had talked about him like this immense talent. It seemed like people that were playing Aints with him were calling him like this immense talent that, like, oh yeah, he's gonna be in the league. Doug was gassing him up. It just seems odd that he's back in Challengers again with a Spanish team in the league with an all Spanish roster.
Yeah,
seems so weird that he's back in Challengers.
It does seem a little odd. Was he part of the the 5 that they chose? I can't remember.
No, that's why I was saying I thought it was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Because he's not at all involved with the Heretics organization.
Yeah.
And being that I believe, unless I'm completely wrong, I thought he was a Spanish player. So just seems a little bit weird that he won't be included because they have, their roster already set with the 5, and one of them will obviously end up being a substitute player, but it seems weird that he's not even included at all.
Yeah.
As a substitute, since he was always viewed as like one of those young up and coming Spanish players.
Yep. Maybe there's some beef with the other players potentially.
And I could be wrong. I want to say he actually might have played in Latin American challengers. No, am I thinking of somebody else? I can't remember. I know he's like a native Spanish speaker, but I can't remember if he was from Spain, or if he was from like the Latin American challengers, like maybe from somewhere in South America and spoke Spanish.
I can't remember.
I try to.
But he's the one that was on the Minnesota Rockers.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Country of birth, Spain. Okay, so he is from Spain. I was right on that, and he's 19 years old. And from what we heard, people always said he was so talented. He was in the Rocker Academy. So like, it just seems weird. 19-year-old. People say he's very talented, and he's from Spain. Seems like he'd be a very good candidate for that team.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know what the deal's there, I guess.
Yeah, looking through, I remember this from last year though. Like Rocker Academy didn't have the best placements overall, but like in Vanguard, dude won a lot of tournaments in Vanguard.
Yeah.
So interesting there that Real doesn't make the roster at all, but something to note, maybe a guy to keep on the radar if Heretics are struggling. They obviously wanted to build a full Spanish roster, and with Real sitting out there in challengers, could definitely be an early candidate if they struggle.
Yep.
An NA roster I want to touch on. Interesting one here. Temp apparently is currently on a challengers team with Neptune, Godorex, and Gwyn. That roster seems disgusting.
Little good for challengers, I feel like.
Yeah, because Godorex obviously coming off a challengers champs win, as well as Gwyn, and we know people say Gwyn is one of the best subs in challengers. People consider Godorex one of, if not the best AR in challengers. Seems like Neptune struggles in the league a little bit, but seems to always have success in challengers. And then Temp is a very good player.
Yep. Just crazy that Temp doesn't get on a team.
Seems a little weird, right? Like surprised maybe Vegas didn't keep him, but once again, after how many years of Temp in Vegas, maybe they were done, or he's just like, I'm not signing back there.
Yeah.
He could maybe still get on the Carolina roster. I wouldn't be shocked if that roster of that 3 would be true. I won't be shocked if Clay brought Donnie along. Yeah. His AR duo, and also LAG with not having a roster yet. Maybe Temp could get on that roster, but it does seem a little bit weird. After Temp has had some pretty good individual years, and people say he is growing as a teammate, it does seem a little bit odd that he maybe isn't on a roster to start the season.
Yeah. So let's hopefully get Temp gets on a team, or sometime soon gets back in the league.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, moving on from the roster rumors. Adam Apicella was tweeting this weekend that he wants to be involved with an MLG resurrection under Microsoft because MLG was owned by Activision Blizzard. It was one of like the companies or like things they own the rights to. So now with Microsoft acquiring MLG, or not MLG, well, technically yes, but with Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard, they now own the rights to the MLG brand. So Adam Apicella was saying that he wanted to resurrect it, and he was like suggesting to them, to Phil Spencer, the CEO of Microsoft, that he's operated many of the titles they now own, such as Overwatch, COD, Halo, etc. So maybe MLG making a return. We can only hope so.
Yes, we can. He knows what to do. It's what how to do it. At a very good high level.
Yeah, and he did it obviously for a long time with MLG, one of the OGs of the scene. He tweeted at him, "Congrats on the acquisition. Activision Blizzard is a perfect fit. Amidst the massive move you made, you also gained a small but mighty asset called MLG. More than ever, that brand is needed in today's rudderless esports world. Would love to be involved in that resurrection." Then went on to tell him what games he's worked on. He said, "You could change the entire industry by leveraging your own library of games. and those of your partnered publishers. I'd love a crack at building the greatest consumer marketing series in the planet, leveraging the best esports brand ever created. I could get on board with MLG being called the best esports brand ever created. I mean, some of those tournaments back in the day, incredible.
Oh, yeah.
If they were thrown now, I can't even imagine the numbers they could do.
Definitely.
And I would absolutely love to go to a COD Champs where Halo was on the side and Overwatch was being played on the side. I would love to attend that. So I hope
That would be so cool.
I hope MLG is revived and we get to see these old school style pro leagues because like the Black Ops 4 Pro League, Black Ops 3 Pro League, AW, all those years with the 32 team champs, it was just infinitely better than what we currently have.
Yep, it really was.
Don't get me wrong. I still create a podcast involved in the CDL. I still really enjoy it, but for those of you that didn't experience it, I'm sorry for you if you're a big CDL fan. Even if you love the CDL now, it's hard to imagine maybe, but it was much better before the CDL. Even the CWL was a time to be alive if you were a competitive COD fan.
Yep. Oh man, just thinking about that.
Yeah, it was an incredible time getting home from school back in the day and watching the Black Ops 3 league matches, or even like the World War II league matches when they started playing them on LAN and stuff.
Yeah, I
Very
remember
fun to watch.
Coming from school, like Black Ops 3, like I said, like 4 league matches go to like 7, 8. So much fun to watch.
Yeah, an incredible game nonetheless. So it'd be awesome to see that brought back. Would love to support Adam Apicella and trying to get him to get that right to build MLG back up to what it was. And then also kind of involving Activision, Bobby Kotick is apparently out as the CEO at the end of the year. I didn't read too much on this, but and I don't know much about the situation. From what I heard, though, everybody is celebrating this because if you remember back when Activision was having all those like sexual misconduct allegations and stuff within their organization, a lot of the reports came out and said basically this dude as the CEO basically knew they were happening and kind of just like, yeah, whatever, turned a blind eye to it, and just didn't really care what was happening to many women inside of his organization. So, and also let's be honest, since he took over, he ran a lot of the Activision titles into the ground. So bad in all aspects of the job, bad as a CEO and bad as a human. So probably a good person to get out of there.
Yep.
So good to see him getting out of there. Unfortunately, he's going to walk away extremely rich from this. Despite all the terrible things he did, he's going to walk away extremely rich. So unfortunate in that aspect, but at least he is getting out.
Yep.
All right. Thoughts on the beta, Brock? Let's talk a little bit about the beta. It's really kind of the last big thing we have to talk about before we wrap it up. But, we were able to watch the beta, not this weekend, but, a week ago, we were able to watch it. Able to take some things, but watching is always different than playing.
Yep.
We'll talk about some individual things. We'll go through like a little bit of a list here, but just overall in general thoughts on the beta.
My thoughts on the beta were, enjoyed it. Had the Vanguard movement feel, speed wise. More speed, better. More movement, the better. For me, at least. Maybe not for the old heads, but for me.
Yeah. I would agree with that, and also I would say that like the time to kill felt incredible.
Oh yeah, I will say when I started playing that, I was just playing like I was playing NW2 after 3 bullets to stop shooting people.
Yeah,
a lot.
Because I mean, back-to-back games, Vanguard and MW2, you killed extremely fast.
Yep.
Yeah, I can get on board with that too. I feel like I was stopping shooting a little bit earlier, like not maybe necessarily stop shooting, but like I would like be shooting at somebody and like see the second guy that I was going to engage with, like turning the corner behind him, and like I would kind of focus my eyes on that guy a little bit too quick and start to drag my aim off like a bullet too early, and then I would die because of it.
Yeah, but I personally like the more time to kill. Higher time to kill.
Yeah, the higher the time to kill within reason, to me, the better. I saw some people complaining, but hopefully, just like any other COD, they like never touch the time to kill. I hope they definitely don't lower it because it felt very, very, very good. Couple maybe bad things, I guess we can talk about before we really talk about a lot of the positives. The visibility. Apparently, I didn't play in weekend 1, but they said people that played both said the visibility was improved. And they've already said they're working on more visibility fixes. Apparently, there's a health bar that could potentially be added into the game before launch. It was maybe supposed to be in this build, but there was like a glitch with it and it wasn't working. So that could be something interesting, kind of like the Black Ops 4 health bar. And then visibility is supposed to be increased. So I hope that means making, one complaint I have is I hope that means making the names above your teammates and enemies a little bit easier to see.
Yeah.
Because still sometimes, like, if I got surprised, I would shoot at a teammate if I wasn't looking at my minimap at the time, because you could like barely see the name over their head. And also for ranked, if you're playing with like a squad of 4, it's nice to be able to like really easily read your teammate's name so you know who's where.
Yep.
And they were very small and pretty tough to read.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll have a good fix for that. Shouldn't be too hard.
And sometimes, like, from range, people were a little bit hard to see. So hopefully those visibility fixes come through. But really, like, and obviously the spawns are a little bit rough right now, but we should maybe be seeing those worked on before the game comes out. But overall, those are really my only like big time negatives to talk about.
Yeah, I also did like how you could manta all out over the stuff where you couldn't before in the old NW2, which is that was fun for me.
Yeah, it certainly makes things very different, and the maps don't play the exact same. But like you said, I do think it makes it a little bit fun at times, because it could get a little stale, playing those old maps we have played for so long. Now there's a little bit of a different element to them. While they're still essentially the same map, there is some different elements. It was a little bit weird on High Rise, though. All the random stuff I can start to mantle that I couldn't before.
Yeah. The game also just felt like a little more arcadey in a way.
Which for Call of Duty is good.
It's good.
Yeah, it sounds like if you're not like a COD player, that sounds like it could be a bad thing, the game being more arcadey. But for Call of Duty players, you want it to feel more arcadey.
Yeah, not so
the
much
realism
realistic.
movement is not it.
Yep.
Also thoughts on like what'd you say?
I'm also glad that Slack Cancel is back.
Yeah, and like I do think that the delay at the end, I didn't think it was that major. Some people were really complaining about it. I don't think it's that major either, because like you don't really have that much of a need, like, because you're not going to get them across the map faster spamming slide cancel than you would just running. So I don't think the delay is the worst, because like how often do you really need to spam a slide cancel?
Yeah,
you don't really need to like just constantly spam it. It's not really a thing.
Yeah. So I didn't mind the delay.
Yeah. So then some other thoughts on like general stuff that was changed before the weekend. The Striker was nerfed before this weekend. I obviously didn't get to try the pre-nerf Striker, but it still seemed very good to me.
Yeah, it did. It beamed.
Of the guns in the beta, obviously, what was there only like 3 SMGs, I'm assuming. When the full game's out, probably going to be more SMGs in the game. But from the guns in the beta, Striker seemed to be probably what will be the meta SMG, unless obviously a better one comes out in the full game.
Yep. Same as the MCW.
Yeah. From what we saw, it sounded like people were saying the Striker was the best gun in the first weekend, but I would say from using both of them a lot, I think the MCW was the better gun this weekend. I think it's the best gun of all the guns that I used in the game, at least.
Yeah. It felt to me like the Black Ops 4 Maddox.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, like the obvious answers, it felt a lot like the ACR, because I think it's basically built to be the ACR. But yeah, I would agree. Like the fast shooting, the way it was really good up close, the way it had really good mobility, like the frequency, how fast it shot, it really did seem a little bit like the Black Ops 4 Maddox. I would agree with that.
Yeah. So
it seemed like it was just a do it all good from every range.
Yeah. So maybe that could be the flex gun, and maybe there's an actual AR.
I saw a lot of people talking about like the MTZ. It shot really fast and had more mobility than the MCW, unless I'm thinking of the wrong name. There was an AR though that shot a lot faster and had more mobility than the MCW. People were saying like, oh, maybe that could be like a flex type gun. The damage is good enough.
Yeah.
Because the MCW was very good from range and it really did beam. So that's probably going to be at least the AR that like your slower AR uses, probably both, because it was very good.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind sub, flex, actual flex, and then an AR.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind if the quote unquote flex comes from being a complete flex gun that's like a faster AR, or if it's somebody that has to switch between a sub and an AR constantly. Either one. I want like a true flex, whether it's like the Maddox style where they use a completely separate faster AR, or it's the style of old games where you truly, on some maps they use a sub, some maps they use an AR, and they switch in the middle of the map. I want one of those to be true. I don't want it to just be 2 AR, 2 sub all the time.
Yeah.
That's where players like Gunless in World War II shine, when they're able to use both guns more effectively than any other flex.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Kenny.
True, and Kenny would be very good in that aspect as well. Let's see here. Anything else I wanted to discuss on the beta I have down here? One more thing. Snipers seemed very strong to me. However, I'm not much of a sniper and never really have been, so I didn't really use a sniper unless I found it on the ground, maybe picked it up and shot a couple shots with it. But they seemed very strong from other people using them. I'm not maybe fully on the nerf them train that a lot of people are on, but like I think it's something that needs to be monitored, because they did seem very, very strong.
Yeah, they're pretty strong for the most part, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm not somebody who's really on like the nerf something train. Like super often. I kind of like to like let things go until like it's obvious they need to be nerfed. Unless something so obvious needs to be nerfed right away, then sure, nerf it. But I also don't want to like hate on the sniping community and be like nerf everything, because snipers, if you hit your shots, they should be really good.
Yeah.
But also like if aim assist is in the game on snipers and stuff, there can be a point where they're a little bit OP. So it's something to watch, as a lot of people are calling for, but not sure what side I sit on yet. I need to see a little bit more of the game.
Yep. The one thing I didn't like about the sniper was in the kill feed, when you kill someone with it looked like an AK.
Yeah, you're not wrong. There was one sniper that definitely looked like an AK. You couldn't even tell, like, until you saw like the silhouette of the gun in the creative class menu, you definitely would have thought somebody would have killed him with like, an assault rifle and AK.
Yeah, cause I died with the thing a couple times. I was like, that is died with an AK in like one bullet.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I saw something on the timeline. Sorry, I don't know if Clay is like trolling now. I should say I don't know. He is definitely trolling, but after that tweet where he tweeted false to the Dwight gif, he tweeted a picture of Miles Sanders in his Panthers uniform, drinking a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously, for any of our EU listeners, if that doesn't mean anything to you, the Panthers are in Carolina. They're the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, the rumors he's going to the Carolina Royal Ravens, so that checks together. Then there was a tweet about rumored rosters from Breaking Point showing Clay on the team, and Marky B said, "Can I run flex to Clayster?" And Clay said, "Only a Fortress Control is every map this year." And then maybe I'm reading too much into this, but he posted a picture in his car, and you can see like the song he's listening to is "All My Life" by Lil Durk and J. Cole, who I believe is from one of the Carolinas. I know he's like a big Hornets fan or something.
Yeah, I think. Yep.
So I believe J. Cole is from one of the Carolinas. So Clay seems to be, maybe that was just a complete coincidence, but he seems to be posting a lot of things associated to Carolina. So maybe that actually is true, and maybe he's saying like the rest of the roster is a lie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so guess we'll see in the next maybe week or two, or even sooner.
Yeah. Two quick things to get into before we wrap it up here. One thing I saw Jacob Hale tweet that said, assuming Treyarch is the GOAT COD developer, how do you rank the rest? Sledgehammer, IW, and Raven. I think for us, Raven's kind of like excluded because they're mostly like a helper on every game, and then like they really did a lot on Warzone, and you and I don't play Warzone, so we kind of exclude that one regardless. But I think if we're talking like more recent body of work, I think both of us would have to agree Sledgehammer is second place behind Treyarch. I mean, I'm not going to argue Treyarch. It's not a question. Treyarch is the GOAT COD developer. It's not even a question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their consistency from like their early CODs, maybe people didn't like people hated COD 3, but like from World at War through Cold War, maybe some of their games weren't the absolute best, but I don't really think they had a miss. They didn't make a bad game from World at War on. World at War, Black Ops 1, 2, 3, and 4 in Cold War. Some of them are maybe better than others, but there's not one game I sit there and I'm like, man, that game sucked. All those games were at least good, I would say.
Yep. No debate on Treyarch being the GOAT COD developer.
You have Sledge ahead of IW. I think the only argument you can make for IW is if you're reaching way back to their old titles, like MW2, COD 4, MW3, the OG MW2 and 3.
I'll go Sledge.
Yeah, I think because once again, like from what we heard, like that whole IW studio that made those OG games is completely gone. Not even the same people work there anymore.
Yeah.
And I think Sledgehammer's recent body of work, like if you go from Ghosts on for IW titles and compare them to Sledgehammer's, I think like AW World War II Vanguard beats out like Ghost and IW, and the gross one is MW19 and MW2 are both just awful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would rank Sledge ahead of IW, and it's not the best competition. Neither of them is certainly great by any means.
Yep.
Nowhere near Treyarch.
Sledge is on top for now over IW.
Yeah. The last thing, we don't have to touch too much on it because neither of us are big time like Halo analysts or anything, but OpTic Halo lost in their champs, the HCS Worlds. They lost in finals. They were there from winners, played Faze, obviously a legendary matchup to see OpTic and Faze in the World Championship finals of any esport, two legendary orgs. OpTic had to just win one best of 7. They got up 2-0 in the first series, and then lost 4 straight to lose 4-2, and then got swept 4-0 in the second series. So lost 8 straight maps, and the series itself was absolutely incredible. Like the second series had a Slayer where OpTic like would look like they were going to lose. They got like 3 straight kills to go up. Then the game like didn't count them as like having a lead as time expired. It counted as tied. So then they had to play like an overtime in the Slayer. They ended up losing. And that was really the nail in the coffin for them when it really looked like they should have closed out map 2 and made it 1-1 in the second series. But absolutely incredible. I was a little sad because anybody that knows that like growing up and like into my more of my intro to COD or my early days of watching COD esports, I loved Formal. So I really wanted to see him win his 3rd ring overall.
Yep. Only if.
Now, technically, I don't really consider him as much of a COD alum because he did win a couple like home series in MW19, but he's definitely more of a Halo player. I think of Formal still as more of a COD player, just because he won so many more championships in COD, and also as a ring in COD. Where Frosty, obviously, everybody thinks of him more as a Halo player. He won a few home series in COD, but I mean, won like 10+ tournaments and 3 rings now in Halo. He's obviously more of a Halo player, and that dude is incredible. Shout out to that whole Faze team because I know a lot of you probably don't watch Halo. Brock, you haven't watched a ton of Halo, but I mean, Royal 2, Frosty, and Snakebite all getting their 3rd ring. Getting your 3rd world championship in any game is pretty damn impressive.
Jeez. Yeah, really is.
I mean, we sit here and we talk about guys like Clay, Karma, Krim. I mean, those are our goats, and those 3 now have 3 rings. That is pretty incredible.
That is something to think about.
So shout out to them. It was an incredible match. If you guys don't watch Halo, I mean, and you wanna get into watching it, that final series, I mean, there were a couple stinker maps. OpTic got blown out like in map 1 of that second best of 7, but I mean, there were some maps in there where it was like that Slayer second map in the second best of 5 when it went to OT, and then it got to 49-49. It was just an absolute standoff for like 2 minutes. It was some of the most tense moments you can have in esports, in my opinion. Like, it was an incredible series. So shout out to Halo for giving us an entertaining weekend. Sad Formal wasn't able to get it, but happy for the other dudes getting their 3rd ring for some of them. Yep. And Renegade getting his 1st. All right. That's going to do it for this one, Brock, unless you've got anything else.
Nope. I do not have anything else to say.
All right. So that's going to do it for this one. If you guys liked it, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on the audio platforms, drop a follow, drop a 5-star review. We'll come back at you next week with another episode. Not sure exactly what it's going to be on. We have a plan coming up here in a couple weeks that we will discuss, in a couple weeks when it comes up. But obviously, we're sitting this Friday will be about 3 weeks until the release of the game, and we can get into talking about how some teams are looking in scrims and all that. So excited to jump into that. But without anything else to talk about, we will wrap this one up, and we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for watching.